actually competitive without completely burning yourself out and dropping everything else on your plate that you then have to pick up and restart once you've submitted your grant. That is what we are talking about today. If you're new around here, I'm Sarah Dobson. I am a research grant consultant, and my team and I help early career researchers get funded at NIH. So, how do you write an R01 efficiently that ends up actually being competitive? My answer to that is to use a system. You're not just winging it. You're not kind of figuring it out as you go. You have a system and a plan that's going to allow you to write a really solid, really competitive grant over time and do it in a way where you feel like you're in control, where you're organized and you've got some structure, and you also have the ability to foresee when other people are going to need to get stuff to you. And so you're not stressing everybody else out as well, right? That's the ideal. And it can seem like it's a difficult ideal to achieve, right? Especially when you look around and you see everybody either sort of dropping everything and binge writing at the last minute, or being able somehow to submit multiple grants in a cycle, or multiple grants over the course of a year. How do they actually do that? If they're further ahead in their career, they have very likely established a system that works for them, and they can rely on documents that they've built up over time that they can refer to and draw from and build on. But if you're early in your career, that is a bit trickier, right? So how do you actually figure that out? How do you actually do that for yourself? Again, it's really about having a system. And the system that I teach is structured in a way that allows you to get from, very early conceptualization to a finished product in an organized way. The process is iterative, but it sort of moves you through different phases of the grant writing process in a way that is going to get you to that endpoint without feeling like you're completely fried at the end of it. And so the way that we start is by making sure that you have a solid strategy in place that's going to allow your research idea to shine, to be put forward in the most competitive way possible. And that is really about making sure, first of all, that you're meeting sort of the minimum requirements to submit your grant, to comply with all of the guidelines and the eligibility requirements, right? So you're not wasting your time working on this grant. So that's, the bare minimum that you need to cover first. But then we get into how can you actually make this idea as competitive as possible? And that is really about finding the right strategy to align your research idea with the mission and priorities of your target funding agency, and to make sure that it ends up in the right study section with people who you won't have to work too hard to convince that your research idea is important and valuable, right? There's obviously the details that you're going to need to lay out for them and argue that, this is how you're going to achieve your objectives, but you want to make sure that you're submitting to a study section that is already mostly on board. They understand kind of what's at stake, and in general understand what you're trying to accomplish, right? So that's just the outline of the strategy piece. And the vehicle that we use for that is primarily your aims page. So we make sure that you're starting out by drafting what we call a stellar specific aims page. And from there, you use that as the basis to write the rest of your application. So once you have that strategy, then we actually move into project planning, right? We don't want a project plan for a project that's going nowhere, which is why we start with strategy. But once we're sure that you are really onto something and you have a research idea that really has some legs, then we move on to actually mapping this out and planning the process of writing this massive application, right? And that is really about having a good sort of project management system in place that you can follow, and making sure that you have protected your time and that you have assigned tasks to that protected time, so that, again, you're not just winging it when you start writing, that you know when you're going to write and you know what you're going to do in that writing time. That's kind of the bottom line there. Once we have moved on from the planning phase, that's when we actually get into building your argument. And that is really about understanding the rhetorical strategies that you need to be able to use to persuade your viewers that your research idea is worthwhile, that you have the right team in place to do the work, and that your project is feasible. And we take those rhetorical strategies and we make sure that you understand how you can use those rhetorical strategies in each and every section of your R01. So what is the purpose of this section? What's your objective in this particular section of the grant? And how you can use different rhetorical tools and frameworks to be as persuasive as possible about your particular project. Once we've gone through the argument phase, then we move on to feedback. So how are you going to get useful feedback on your application that's actually going to improve it, of course, before you even submit, right? So we talk about who to ask, how to ask them, and what to ask for. And then the final stage of the process is really about that refinement and fine tuning. So how are you going to make sure that all of the pieces are in place, that everything is as it should be, and that you are putting your absolute best foot forward with this application? And so that is the 5-stage process that we take you through when I'm teaching you how to write R01 grants. And those phases, I just want to remind you, aren't exactly linear, right? You're going to be moving back and forth between them as you go. But at least you understand sort of what the process looks like and the initial order that you need to sort of understand how to proceed to make the best use of your time and to make sure that you're being as efficient as possible. And so that is the exact process that we teach inside our self-paced virtual course called the Grant Funding Formula. And this course, like I said, walks you through all of those phases and all of those steps to help you come out the other side with a competitive and compelling R01 grant. And that course is available to you anytime. But if you are watching this close to the time that this is recorded, so before April 30th, we have a special summer writing bonus available to anybody who registers between now and April 30th. And that's going to give you some extra tools to help you in the writing process, including some insider information from NIH reviewers, a little mini course to help you write any articles that you need to get out the door. And if you are writing a resubmission, we have another mini course that teaches you how to decipher your summary statement and make a really strong resubmission. So that is all available to you inside the Grant Funding Formula course if you sign up before April 30th. And you can find the link to learn more about the course and to register in the video description. All right, I will see you next time.